Hello, this is Vakar Alisha. I am a doctoral researcher at the Center for Applied Language Study, the University of Jyväskylä, Finland. Professionally, I am affiliated as a lecturer with the Medha University of Engineering and Technology, Jamshedpur, Pakistan. In today's session, we will try to have a look at the theoretical and the conceptual frameworks, how they are similar and different from each other. Most of the researchers, have a they have an assumption that the theoretical framework is something which can be taken in any qualitative research, while conceptual framework is specifically selected for any quantitative inquiry. So we will try to see if that is true and how they are different from each other. So we will try to look at the definition from different researchers. So if we take the definition from Ravich and Regan, 2017, and they wrote a complete book on this particular topic, what is conceptual framework, and they define it as an argument about why the topic one wishes to study matters and why the means proposed to study it are appropriate and rigorous. So according to them, it is actually a complete design in a researcher's mind about the problem statement and about the variables and the variables in the light of literature, the variables in the light of particular theories, and to find the relationship between these variables, and even extending to the methodologies, the tools to be carried out in a particular inquiry. So the conceptual framework, according to Ravich and Regan, would be a complete abstract design in a researcher's mind about the study. And Miles et al., they explain that conceptual framework is an explanation. And it can be given in a graph. It can be presented graphically or narratively as well. And you would see that most of the studies, and if we look at the quantitative studies, they do contain conceptual frameworks in a graphic manner. But we can also go with the narrative form, even in the quantitative inquiry as well. So that's explanation of the main things to be studied, the key factors, variables, or constructs, and their relationship among them. So it is a very common practice in any research whenever we want to see any problem statement. And with the problem statement, we always try to come up with certain variables, and we want to develop a relationship with the variable. We want to see the relationship between the variables. For example, if we want to see the relationship between academic success and English language proficiency, these are two variables, and we want to see the relationship whether they are directly proportional to each other or they do not have any kind of relation between these two variables. So to definitely proceed, we have to look at different studies present in the literature, and we might have a look into the theories about English language proficiencies and academic success, and then in the light of literature we can actually develop our conceptual framework, and we can also include design and tools that can be used in our study according to Ravich and Regan's idea of the conceptual framework. So if we look at the definition from the Marshall and Roseman, they define CP, they think that CP is actually the major section of the proposal. So whenever you conduct a research, the first thing that is very important is to prepare a research proposal. And for a research proposal, you as a researcher should have a clear idea about the conceptual framework. So for example, if you bring an idea on the table and you discuss with your supervisor, you discuss with any other co-authors or co-researchers, definitely you should be in a position to defend it within a certain conceptual framework. Means, okay, if this is a problem, now how are you going to proceed with it? What possible methodological tools you have at your hand? Likewise, what are the theoretical positions that you have thought over in relation to the topic, that the idea that you want to investigate? So you should have a clear conceptual framework, conceptual framing of the idea that you want to investigate. So it demands a solid rationale In examining a specific setting or set of individuals, the writer should show how she is studying instances of a larger phenomena by linking the specific questions to larger theoretical constructs, to existing puzzles or contested position in the field. So definitely whatever idea you have in the mind, you have to see in the literature first. I mean, what has been done in the literature and what are the different theoretical constructs on a particular idea that you want to carry out. And within that literature, you may come up with that this idea has been studied, within different theoretical positions. For example, if I want to study about the identity, how identity is actually shaped, and then I would see that, on identity, there are, different types of studies. We may find sociological studies, we may find the studies in anthropology, and even psychology, and then linguistics as well. And even within the same field, you will see that there may be, different theoretical positions or contested position on the same topic. For example, identity studied from can be studied as a stable or a fixed entity within a structuralist, theoretical position. But if we study it from a post-structuralist position, the definition of identity is something which is fluctuating, which is not something is stable. So this is very important that, to develop a conceptual framework, we have to, investigate a particular idea, a particular, construct that we want to investigate within the literature. We have to bring, different contested positions on it, and then we will see how can we develop, how can that, help us in developing our conceptual framework. So the writer shows that the particulars of the study serve to eliminate larger issues and therefore hold a potential position for the field. When you are doing it, definitely you will be in a position to defend your idea, why you want to carry out this idea, and how it is going to contribute to the field. And Maxwell discussed conceptual framework in relation to qualitative research. So now this is where the assumption most of the people have that the conceptual framework is something taken in qualitative inquiry. Here, Maxwell suggests that conceptual framework is something which is used in the qualitative research as well. So conceptual and theoretical frameworks are synonymous, according to Maxwell. So conceptual framework presents a theory of the phenomena under investigation. Now, this is how a conceptual framework looks like. For example, it's taken from the source Crawford 2020, very good source to understand what is the conceptual and theoretical framework. So for example, Crawford defines that conceptual framework is about argumentation, let's say, is taken from the definition I have given. So it talks about the importance of a study, why I want to carry out a study, and then appropriate and rigorous design and methods. This should be, a complete argument from a researcher. And then definitely you have to give explanation that is about the key factors and the relationships among those factors or variables that you want to study. And then it's about the generation that contains a problem, research questions, data collection, data analysis, finding, interpretation. So that means a conceptual framework is a complete, scaffolding for your study. Without a conceptual framework, I think a researcher cannot actually proceed with the study or the inquiry he or she has in the mind. So therefore, it should be, well formulated, and a researcher should have a clear picture of it. Now, where does conceptual framework come from? Basically, the first source is our experience. Because, for example, if I as a social being, I live in society, and I do, experience the problems in my daily life, and I can, maybe come up with an idea, and then the ways to study it, how this particular idea is actually, working within a society, and what's the problem that is in the society, and what can be the possible means to study them. So they can be one of, experience can be one of the sources of your conceptual framework, but it is not sufficient actually. Besides your experience, you have to look at the literature review. Maybe we can see that the same idea that has emerged in my mind in relation to a particular society, I have to find out, what literature review exists on this one. And then besides the literature review, which may be a kind of, set of empirical studies, I have to see maybe this particular problem has been studied within a particular theory. So I have to, come up with particular theories, and then, I have to see what help I can draw from different theories to develop my conceptual framework. In conceptual framework, it is not necessary that we use only one or two particular theories. Sometimes, a number of theories can actually, help us to develop our conceptual framework, because each variable that we want to investigate in our study that has been, studied, that has been developed within a particular theory. So theoretical support is very integral in developing a conceptual framework. Now, if we look at the theoretical framework, according to Merriam and Tisdale, they define theoretical framework as the underlying structure, the scaffolding, a frame of your study. Now, this definition is quite similar to what we have been studying about the conceptual framework. And if we try to understand it in a more concrete way, a theoretical framework is more based on a single broader theory. Okay, so in conceptual framework, for example, we can draw on some 2 or 3 different theories to, for example, I want to investigate 3 variables in my study, let's say in a quantitative inquiry. Definitely 3 variables may have, different theoretical positions. They have been investigated in different theoretical positions. So therefore, I can take, help from different theoretical positions looking at each variable. But when it comes to theoretical framework in relation to a qualitative research specifically, then it is very important that we should try to narrow down to a specific theory that can be used in our research. I will give you some examples of how a specific theory can be used. So Crawford actually has given some steps or some of the statements about what can a theoretical framework do. So according to him, theoretical framework should do the following. So when you are using a theoretical framework in your research, what kind of questions you should have in the mind. First of all, you should know that you should identify the theory cluster. Okay. Now, by theory cluster means whenever you want to study any phenomena, any topic, you always will be having many studies, many theories. I mean, so you have to identify those specific theories on a particular topic. For example, I am conducting a research on discourse. Okay, I want to see how, for example, certain behaviors and certain activities are performed, shaped in a particular society. So to study those specific behaviors and specific activities, I need to identify, different specific theories, okay, relevant to the cluster, I mean the particular idea, the particular the question in my mind. So what are the existing theories I have to identify? Now, in discourse theory, we will come up with a number of theories. So discourse analysis is not a unitary approach. It has actually different approaches within that. So it is not a single stance actually. For example, I can come up with a Venn diagram model, that is socio-cognitive model, and then a Root-Woodhock model, that is a very historical approach to discourse studies. Likewise, if we see Fairclough's approach, that is about the power abuse in through language, and how that power abuse actually creates inequalities and social injustices in society through language in the text. And likewise, I can have a look at the Foucauldian, concept of discourse. So I will be coming up with the different theories in my literature, and then out of that I have to identify the theories selected for the study. And definitely I cannot use all the theories in my study. I have to be specific. I have to narrow down to a particular theory, and then the selection of that theory is actually done in relation to the research problem, in relation to the nature of your study, what you want to see. For example, if you want to see how certain discourses have started and how they have evolved, and what are the similarities, okay, between some discourses and how they are different from each other, that means now looking at that idea, I can understand that I am more interested in the historical construction of certain, discourses, and Ruth Woodhouse model, the historical, discourse analysis, that can be helpful to me. But if I want to study about the power abuse, if my research questions, if my objectives of the study, they are actually, aimed at identifying the injustices and inequalities and power relations within the text and through the language, definitely. And I have to pick, more critical, framework that can be like a Fairclough's model of CDA. So that's just how we can, always pick the studies very selectively by looking at the nature of questions, and then state how the study will contribute to the body of knowledge. And once I have decided that I am going to use this particular theory in my study, then I have to, in the theoretical framework, I have to, show that how my study is going to contribute to this particular theory, whether it is going to add to the existing body of knowledge in the theory, or it is going to alter it, or it is going to further, extend the tradition. This is what we can do. So these are the final words, that a conceptual framework can be used in the absence of an existing theory that relates to the topic and purpose of the study. So that means if you think that your study does not have a broader theory, so that means you're not going to use a theoretical framework now in a very rigorous sense. Then you have to make sure that your study would be having a conceptual framework, and within that conceptual framework, as I said, that it can draw on the theories as well, because theories or the theoretical framework can be one of the important parts of conceptual framework, because in every study, definitely we have some concepts, some variables that we want to investigate, and investigating or understanding concepts without their theoretical position is actually not supportive. So therefore, it's very important that we should develop a conceptual framework. And as I said, that we have the experience, literature, and theory. These are three important sources for conceptual framework that we have to look up to. So it is the lens through which each element of the study is explored and explained. Theoretical framework more typically uses as one specific theory that guides the research studies. I think that's clear. And the last definition here, according to Crawford, theoretical framework is an element of CF, conceptual framework, that situates the relationships explored in the study into the context of developing or testing formal theories. So to conclude, we cannot actually restrict our, the definitions of conceptual and theoretical framework either to qualitative or the quantitative studies. Qualitative studies do have, conceptual frameworks, and quantitative studies do have the conceptual framework. At the same time, theoretical, frameworks are also possible in both of the studies. But broadly speaking, when you think that your study is going to be situated within a broader theory, then definitely you better need to use the word theoretical framework. But if you think that no, your study tries to investigate relationship between different variables, and you do not have a single theory to support the concepts or the variables in your study, then you need to use the word conceptual framework, because conceptual framework would draw on different theoretical positions related to the different concepts and different variables in the study. So thank you so much. That is the end of the session. And in next session, we will try to look at how to write methodology in literature review and in the research articles, and definitely some other parts like research and discussion, how they are different from each other and how they can be written. And then we will try to have a look at the abstract writing. Thank you so much.